This is Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Since the day he was inaugurated for his second term, President Donald Trump has been leading a heightened campaign to deport immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally. There have been raids at work sites, including Vermont farms. The president has also instituted a travel ban on 12 countries and a partial ban on 7 more. The total ban targets mostly Muslim or African nations. Today on Vermont Edition, we are going to hear how these actions and this climate affect immigrants in our region, including refugees, green card holders, and international students. And at the end of the hour, we'll get a dispatch from the Mexican consulate. It recently set up shop in Montpelier to help Mexican nationals file paperwork and address other issues they might be facing while living and working in Vermont. Joining me this hour is Tracy Dolan. She's the director of Vermont's State Refugee Office. Tracy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
We're also joined from Brattleboro by Joe Wiah. He's the director of the Ethiopian Community Development Council, ECDC, which is a refugee resettlement agency in the southern part of this state. Joe, good to have you back.
Thank you, Michaela. I'm happy to be here.
And we also have Kristen Connors with us today. She's an immigration attorney at Montroll, Oettinger and Barquist in Burlington. Kristen, welcome.
Hi, Michaela. It's so nice to be here.
And listeners, we are glad to have you with us as well. Perhaps you have family members or friends who are subject to this travel ban. Do you have questions about it or how it could affect people already in Vermont? You can give us a call this hour at 800-639-2211 or send us an email to vermontedition@vermontpublic.org. So, Tracy, help us get oriented a bit. What exactly does a travel ban mean? Can anyone from that country enter the U.S., or is it an absolute ban?
So the executive order that came out in June, a few weeks ago, basically described a full travel ban and a partial travel ban. And the ban is currently restricting nationals from 12 countries. And I'd be happy to just quickly read those out. Those are Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. And the ban basically means that nationals cannot come from those countries. There's very few exceptions. If you're a citizen of the U.S. or you're a green card holder and you go there, you may come back. But folks, the way it impacts us here is, for example, if there are refugees here who are looking to bring their family members over, which is a process that's normally been allowed through petitions, they would be unable to come. But I might defer a little more to Kristen to speak a little more to the legal aspects of the travel ban, and then I'd be glad to come back and talk about it.
Please, Kristen, how has this new travel ban been affecting your work?
Sure. So I'm a private attorney here in Burlington. I do a wide range of family-based employment and humanitarian-based visa petitions. Some of the ways I've seen this affecting my clients is it just creates a heightened level of fear with my clients. I work with many asylum seekers and folks who have been given asylum or refugee status who have asked me to help them in particular get petition for their families to, it's called a follow to join petition because it's when a refugee or an asylee petitions the government to allow their family members living in another country to follow them into the United States. And with some of the other executive orders we've seen limiting refugee processing abroad, that has all but halted. That's been halted for refugees for quite some time. And the concern is that folks who have asylum who are here in the U.S. it's going to be even harder for them to bring their families to the United States. We were seeing some pretty long delays with family reunification anyway, and this has just exacerbated this. One more thing I would point out is that a lot of these petitions only encompass spouses and children who are under 21 and who are unmarried. And so if we have a family with adult children who are essentially 21 and older, those family members cannot follow to join on those follow to join petitions. And so there has to be some other way of getting them into the country, including perhaps a student visa or another type of visitor or employment-based visa, with the idea being they use another visa like a J1, like an F1. Those are types of student and educational exchange visas. And then when they arrive in the U.S., they can apply for asylum. They can seek other types of humanitarian-based aid. And this essentially has cut off that plan, those strategies for us.
And there has been some uncertainty around student visas as well, but we'll put a pin in that for now. Tracy, you had something else to add there?
I just wanted to add, so for example, we do have a few exceptions. So the Afghans who came in a variety of statuses. Some came as humanitarian parolees. Some came as special immigrant visa holders, which means they were working and assisting our military, often arm in arm. And some came on refugee status. We do know that one exception is that SIV holders from Afghanistan can continue to arrive, and they do. However, many are here with different status. So when they came as humanitarian parolees, their only option for many of them was to get asylum status. Now they are not allowed to bring their families. And a lot of these folks were really promised that they could bring families over. So you've got women and girls living in Afghanistan. There probably isn't a worse place on the planet right now to be living as a woman or a girl than Afghanistan, who are hiding in their homes, who literally don't come out during the daylight, whose children don't get to go to school, who were waiting and promised to be able to come over. We have people from other countries whose families here in Vermont had rented an entire house or an apartment, being told, get ready, they're coming. And then folks overseas selling everything they have, a ticket in hand. Canceled then with the refugee suspension, and now with the travel ban, no option to even go through this petition, follow to join. And these are people who've been vetted in some cases for years.
And Joe, I know your organization works very closely with folks that Tracy is describing right now, especially people from Afghanistan who have left family members back in that country and are hoping to be reunified with them. Is that right? Can you tell us a little bit more about ECDC?
Thank you, Michaela. For your listener, as you already mentioned, my name is Joe, the director here. So we started our in January of 2022 resettling the refugees, and when we started, it was the same time around that time when Afghanistan fell. So the first group of arrivals in our pipelines were mostly Afghans, and right now the population we have here among our refugees population, Afghan make up the largest population, then followed by the Eritreans, and then Venezuelans. And all of these three countries are on the travel ban. And what we're hearing from going back, right now in Southern Vermont alone, we have about 547 refugees representing about 182 families, both in Burlington, Brattleboro. Now we have Springfield and a little bit of Bellas Falls. And 82% of our arrivals are from Afghanistan, Venezuela, and Eritrea. All of these countries, I just said, are really being affected by this travel ban. And the frustration about it is that through our family reunification process, we are putting a lot of petition for the Follow to Join program. And there has been, interviews set up. Some families were already preparing to receive their families. To Tracy's point, some families here have rented houses and apartments, and just to be told that their families cannot come. And it's this, just imagine the youngest of one of the family, the child that is still in Pakistan is 7 years old. So imagine a 7 years old is staying in Pakistan, and most of the Afghan family, because of the situation that going on in Afghanistan, moved to Pakistan because the U.S. embassy in Pakistan is the one that processing the visa. So you find yourself in Pakistan, and then you'll be told that you cannot come. And then we have families also, from the Eritrean population, who for years have been living in Kenya in the refugees camp. They left Eritrea for a long time. Some of their children were born in Kenya, and now they are kind of stuck in Kenya at a refugees camp, and they too cannot travel. Same with our Venezuelan families. So it's just, the impact is so great on our families here.
And Joe, you mentioned the Follow to Join program. Kristen, I'm wondering if you could give us a little bit more detail on what that program is.
Sure. It's a part of the Immigration and Nationality Act that allows a person who has received refugee or asylee status. And legally speaking, a person who is an asylee or a refugee meets the same legal definition of a person who's unable or unwilling to return to their country of origin because of a persecution based on race, religion, nationality, a particular social group, or political opinion. So the only difference is where you're assigned that status. If you are a refugee, you are adjudicated and given that definition outside of the U.S. An asylee is that decision is made when they are physically present in the U.S. And you, when you have a client who has asylum or refugee status, the first thing that I do is I get a list of all of their children who are under the age of 21 and any spouse they might have, and fill out a form. It's called an I-730, and it just you get so series of biographical information about each. The petitioner is the relative with asylum or refugee status, and you fill out a separate petition for each family member, so spouse and every child under the age of 21. If you have children who are 21 and older, unfortunately, you cannot use this process to bring them to the United States, and so you essentially have to wait until you're granted a green card or lawful permanent resident status in order to be able to bring those older children into the U.S. through a green card petition. But the catch is that those children have to remain unmarried for you to be able to bring them to the U.S. to join you.
Wow, there's just so many asterisks and bullet points and sub-bullet points. I can't imagine navigating this either as an attorney or someone in your positions or one of these families. Tracy, one question I have had the past few weeks as I read about the travel ban and the effect it's having on folks here and across the country is whether or not there is anything different about being a refugee or an asylum seeker who has been placed in Vermont specifically versus another state. Is there anything about, I don't know, state law or the community here that affects folks differently compared to if they had been placed in Louisiana or Texas or North Dakota?
Well, we like to think we're awesome, obviously. So we're here in Vermont. And from a community level, I can tell you that actually a recent survey of Vermonters found a very high level of interest and acceptance and approval of bringing refugees here and resettling them here. So just from the public's perception, we have a really high and support for community and refugee resettlement here in Vermont. Legally, no, there are no differences. We do have, I would say the community, our government, our offices, our community partners are very much leaning into trying to help as much as we can. But legally, to the best of my knowledge, there is no difference. I did want to jump just on one thing
Please.
You said earlier. You said it's so complicated. And it's complicated even for people who do this every day, for immigration attorneys who literally every week. Imagine the Border Patrol officers who have an incredible amount of discretion. So now somebody's coming back. Maybe they're a green card holder. Maybe they have some other kind of status. And now you've got Border Patrol, again, with a lot of discretion, also making decisions on the spot. And it's making everyone afraid, really. The constant change, the feeling of not knowing what's going to change, and really feeling like you're being targeted. For a lot of folks, makes it very difficult. So all the change, and then just the challenge of what's in these orders makes it complicated for everyone, and it really is increasing, I think, the harm of all of this.
Joe, has that also been the experience of you and your staff? I mean, the complexity of trying to keep up with these rapid changes to federal regulations and to the status of individual families that you work with. What's that been like for you and your staff?
Oh yes, it's we're in these uncertain times that things keep changing and changing fast. You put out information today, and then in a few weeks it changed again, then you have to go back. Um, Besides also changing fast, the morale as well, and the confusion that it creates. Because sometimes staff right now who have been working so hard, to serve the population we serve, keep getting so frustrated. Okay, what next? What next? The surprises keep coming every time the policies change. And then from the client's point of view as well, just imagine that you have your hopes set up that this is going to happen, and then from nowhere things change. And I have gone through that process myself, even though I'm not a refugee. But I just imagine what these families go through, because I just brought my two boys here a year and a half now, to the United States. And the time it took me and the uncertainties as a parent that you go through, not knowing what your children are going through in country of origins, and then that separation that you are not in the lives of your children. So imagine what these parents and families are going through. And when the hopes were raised that the families would be reunited, and from nowhere things have changed. So it's really, really a difficult time, not only for the population here, but also for the staff that, our staff who are working with them. Everyone, things keep changing. But adding to a point that Tracy did mention, though, which is the community perception and the community support. I want to use this time to continue to say thank you to the Vermont community, but because the community continue to support our refugees population in ways that, many ways that they can, from volunteering to financial donation. And we thank them and we encourage them to do so. I also want to add a point, because some of our community members who may be listening right now are doing GoFundMe, raising some funds for family reunification. I just want them, as if they are listening to this, to this discussion, be clear with the family and tell them, even though you raise funds for family reunification, as things are right now, you may not be able to reunify those families right now. So be clear, be transparent in the process, and let them know the process may take time, even though you're raising some funds to make sure that they are reunited, but it's not going to happen so.
Well, let's come back to that in just a moment after a break. I want to talk, Chris, with you specifically about what the financial burden of some of this work is on families and on organizations that help refugees and immigrants reunite with their families. We also have our phone lines open and would love to hear from you. Perhaps you work with a family that is trying to reunify with folks who are still back home in a different country, and they're being affected by the travel ban. Or perhaps that describes you and your own family. Maybe you have questions about the headlines you've been reading in the news about immigration and the Trump administration's crackdown on illegal immigration. You can call in now and we'll do our best to answer your questions. 800-639-2211 is our number. You can also email Vermont Edition at vermontpublic.org. Stay with us.
Thanks for listening to Vermont Edition, where support comes from Wendell's Furniture, home of wendellsdeals.com, offering furniture designed for a range of budgets, in stock and ready for summer. wendellsdeals.com. And Vermont Construction's Roofing Division, offering roof installation and repair with free estimates on asphalt and standing seam metal roofs. Now serving all of Vermont and northern New York. More at vtroofing.com.
Welcome back to Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Today on the show, we are discussing the local impact of the Trump administration's immigration policies, including a full travel ban on 12 countries and a partial ban on another 7. We're learning how people living in Vermont from those banned nations are being affected, as well as folks who help resettle them in this area. Our guests are Burlington-based immigration attorney Kristen Connors with the law office Montroll, Oettinger and Barquist, the director of Vermont's State Refugee Office, Tracy Dolan, and Joe Wiah, the head of a refugee resettlement agency in Brattleboro called ECDC. You can join our conversation by calling 800-639-2211 or emailing Vermont Edition at vermontpublic.org. Just before the break, Joe brought up the fact that some families are trying to fundraise to support their family reunification efforts, but those efforts efforts are going much slower than many folks might realize. But Kristen, I would love to hear a little bit more about what the financial burden can be in this whole process.
Sure. So it is very expensive to bring your family here. I'm a private immigration attorney, and so I do charge for my services for most people, right? I do have the capacity to take some pro bono and some low bono cases, but I've pretty much hit my capacity for those because there is truly so much need and frankly not enough attorneys doing this kind of work in this state. But on top of the legal fees, to just pay an attorney perhaps to help you fill out these applications, which frankly usually cost many thousands of dollars, there are huge filing fees that you need to pay the U.S. government. So I do want to mention that in the most recent budget reconciliation bill that passed, they did institute some fees on asylum and other immigration petitions that had not had any filing fees in the past. So now if you want to apply for asylum, you need to pay $100 filing fee when you initially apply, plus an additional $100 each year your application is pending. And if you file affirmatively for asylum with the government, your case will probably be pending for years and years and years, and that's because there's such a huge backlog. For example, it costs about $675 to file an I-130 petition to bring an unmarried adult child to the United States if you are a green card holder. So we have seen some asylees and refugees have gotten their green cards. They're eligible after being in asylum or refugee status for 1 year. And so those folks have taken the step to try to bring those adult children here to the U.S. It costs $675 to file that initial I-130 petition. And that's not the end of the filing fees by any means. And that's not the end of the wait, because once you file that petition and it's approved, you have to wait for a visa to become available. And at this point, there's currently a 4 to 5 year backlog. And so even if you have that approved petition, it's still another several years before you might actually be able to come to the United States.
Joe, I can only imagine that is a very difficult conversation for you and your staff to have with the families that you're working with there in the Brattleboro region to say, hey, this might not be possible right now for a lot of different reasons, and finances are one of those. Is that something that you're able to kind of help families with through the work you do?
Yeah, that's what we do every day. Trying to explain to families what the situation is right now, and the cost. I mean, not cost, the challenges that they are faced with, be it financial burden as well as the confusion of the policies that are out. One thing also I want to add to that the challenges the families are faced with, and I still want to talk about the Pakistan situation. Families are continuing to support those families that have moved to Pakistan. So imagine, as a family here, taking care of your needs here, and then with the hope that your family is going to join you soon. So you move them to Pakistan so that their visa will be processed. You rent a place, you're paying for everything there, and now they are kind of stuck in Pakistan. They cannot go back to Afghanistan. So that financial burden added to that. Same thing with families that are in Eritrea, Kenya, as well as the Venezuelan families are not in Venezuela but also in other countries. So the financial burden is so hard on our families here. And it's so hard, discussing with them, trying to tell them the challenges this face with. We do our best to just make it simple as possible, but it is so hard and challenging for our families every day.
Tracy, you had something to
I just
there.
wanted to add, as you hear about all these costs, I guess I want to remind all the Vermonters that we're talking about people who actually came in through legal processes. I mean, a lot of folks that you're hearing about, even people who have parole, they all came in, the vast majority through legal processes. So we're not talking about some other group that may be working outside of the realm of what existing immigration laws allow for. This policy really undermines what we had in place for existing immigration laws. And the other point is, as you hear about costs, these are all folks, the majority who are working one job, probably two jobs, and they go to work very quickly after they arrive into Vermont. It's one of the first questions they ask: when can I go to work? Where can I work? Their kids are going to school. I mean, these are people who are part of our community, who are working, filling really important roles in our employment sector. And so there's just so many good reasons we want this to all work out, and this ban is just yet another very difficult step. We have a Syrian right now who's got an emergency in Syria. Normally, because they have a green card, they should be able to go there and come back. Even under this ban, ideally, they should be able to do that, but very nervous, right? Because even with a green card, I don't know which Border Patrol agent might see that person and might not be able to interpret the massive amount of policies and the complication. And if they can't get back in, then they've got kids here who might not have a mom or a dad. So very complicated.
Kristen, I see you nodding your head there. Is that a situation your clients have faced too?
Yeah, I mean, we do. I can think of several examples in my own practice where folks have arrived at the port of entry in Highgate and been erroneously denied entry back into the U.S. And that sets off a whole slew of possible legal processes, including habeas petitions in the federal court. And so, I worry that the lack of any guidance, the constantly changing policies will just increase the number of erroneous either detentions. I have seen Customs and Border Protection erroneously turn people away who are seeking asylum under Section 108 of the Immigration and Nationality Act at a port of entry, which they're lawfully allowed to do. And so I think I just fear we'll see more of this as confusion increases.
Is that a fear of yours as well, Joe?
Yes. Coming with your question again, Michaela. Sorry, I missed that.
Just that we're going to be seeing more as these changes continue to happen. That there's, it seems like the change is not the changes to the U.S. immigration policies. Perhaps they're not being disseminated to all of the federal agencies and federal workforce that works at borders and border crossings and things like that as quickly as it could be or should be, and that is affecting how people travel across borders, even if they are here legally with documentation, which is those are the folks that we're talking about right now. And it sounds like there's change still to come. I mean, President Trump has discussed adding more countries to the travel ban. Is there a way that you and your staff are able to anticipate any of these future changes down the line, or is it kind of just taking things day by day at this point?
Well, we're taking things day by day, and also sometimes we anticipate some things that may come up. But no one knows for sure what really going to come. Things keep changing, and that creates the fear and the uncertainties. And because you may be dealing with a particular policy change now, and then in a few weeks that policy change. I'll give you one example right now. We have been resettling few SIV cases, which is a special immigrant visa holder. But then in recent times we heard that those working at the PRM, which is the State Department, on Friday they all been laid off. Most of them, if not all of them, and so we don't even know who we'll be dealing with from the State Department level right now. To be able to serve this population here. So things keep changing all the time. But what we have said to ourselves and also always say to our clients is we are here to serve in the best way possible, and we continue to serve them. We haven't changed our services towards our clients, regardless of the policy change at the federal level. We still continue to provide them those critical needs and services that is required. But it's so difficult because things continue to change.
Kristen, earlier we had mentioned the fact that there are also a number of students who you work with who come to our region to study at one of the local colleges or universities. Could you tell us a little bit more about those types of clients and some of the challenges they're facing right now?
Sure. Under U.S. law, there's kind of 2 to 3 different types of student visas. There's an F1, which encompasses your traditional academic program. So if you are a student at St. Michael's College, Champlain College, University of Vermont, you would apply from your home country, you'd apply for that F1 visa. You fill out the appropriate State Department form, pay, hundreds of dollars in fees, and wait for them to call you for an interview where they will, go through your social media. They will ask you tons of security questions to determine if you're a national security threat. Go back through 5 to 10 years of address and employment history. And it's a very thorough background check and edit. And this was before the travel ban and before some of the new policy changes about enhanced social media vetting that we've been hearing from the administration. So they were already very thoroughly vetted. And I will say, so that's an F1, and M1 is a very similar type of visa for folks who are doing sort of technical training programs. And then you have a J1, which encompasses a wide variety of folks, from au pairs to med student interns. So those are typically considered cultural exchange folks. They are programs that are kind of by agreement based on different countries. And so we actually, in Vermont, there are a lot of folks who hold J1 visas who have critical support roles in our tourism industry, at ski resorts, at hotels. Many of the staff employed at these types of locations who do hold a J1 visa. And the concern is that if it's increasingly harder to get those, or that pathway is shut off for you because of the country where you live, that can really make a huge impact here in the state.
Let's go to the phones here. We have Marcia, who's calling in from Brattleboro. Marcia, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. I want to know for a fact that if you leave, I'm from the Caribbean, as I said, and I want to know, if you leave, would you not be allowed to return in the U.S.? I'm a green card holder.
Kristen, perhaps you could help answer this question.
Okay. So Marcia, it's nice to meet you. I do need to give the plug. I'm not your real attorney, and so you should not take my advice as actual legal advice. But if you are a green card holder, you could, I would, and I am assuming you said you're from the Caribbean. That is not one of the countries on the travel ban. And so green card holders are generally allowed to travel freely to and from the United States, provided you have your unexpired passport from your home country and your green card with you, as well as any notices that might have extended your green card if it expired, things like that. So if that applies and you have no other adverse criminal history or anything like that, folks with green cards who are from countries not on the travel ban should generally be able to travel freely.
Marcia, it sounds like you're feeling nervous about traveling back to your home country.
Oh, yes. Because and we have to be, because we don't know where we stand or what's happening. And just to say, somebody told me the other day that they're saying now that when you are leaving, you need to do a paperwork that says you are allowed back in the USA. So all of these questions are bothering us, and we don't know what to do. They don't say where you can get that paperwork done or whatever. So it's really shaking us up. We're really confused. We don't know what to do. We have sick family members to go and look for, so we don't know what to do. It's really shaking us up.
Oh, Marcia, I'm so sorry to hear that. That sounds like a really difficult situation for you and your family to be in. And your story mimics what we were talking about earlier, Tracy, how these changes are perhaps not being communicated or disseminated in a way in which everybody involved can keep up.
Yeah, and to be honest, even if they do get disseminated out to the field staff, let's say at Customs and Border Protection, they're not that easy to understand either. And every situation is different. So a green card holder comes back. And again, I would suggest people maybe consult with an attorney if they have concerns. But, depending on your criminal background, that might be something to really think about if you choose to go and come back, because we are certainly hearing plenty of stories and seeing some factual accounts of Customs and Border Protection really exercising a pretty liberal amount of discretion in deciding when they pull up your history whether or not you can get back in. It's a little different than other legal processes. What happens at the border is pretty unique in law. And so that is a tricky situation, and I do understand. I mean, I'm a naturalized citizen. I'm headed to Montreal in a couple of weeks. I have got just a touch of nervousness, and I'm a white middle class, woman with plenty of privilege, and I'm just a tiny bit nervous,
Yeah.
And so I can only imagine, and I do know directly, what so many of our brown and black Vermont residents, refugees, asylees, people with all kinds of other status must be feeling. These are hard times.
Joe, what kind of support do the families that you work with need right now? How can people in the community help them or support the work that you do?
Oh, we're still looking for volunteers. Needs have changed now. People have been here for a while. So, some people are looking for support in terms of just broad case management, wraparound services. People are still confused about the whole legal, family reunification. So we also have a little bit of legal program here that we're trying to continue to work with our case managers and also AALT there in Burlington to support our clients here who are looking for support. So any of our Vermonters who want to support in that, whether it's financial or any way possible, they are free to do that. We also have, mental health is another support now because people are so stressed here because of what's going on. And so any way that those who are from the mental health field, be it a CRS or be it professionals who are not affiliated with any of the established mental health providers, who also want to provide support to our clients, they are most welcome. People can go to our website, ecdc.vt.org, and they can either support, donate, or volunteer if they want to support our clients here. But to your question, there are different needs that our clients have, be it above or is this legal support that our clients are looking for.
Kristen, you are there providing that legal support to many folks living in Vermont. For those of us listening without law degrees, though, based on the conversations that you have with your clients, do you have anything to add to Joe's list there? Either ways that people can support the refugees and asylum seekers in our communities right now who might be struggling to figure out a path forward?
Yeah. Pardon me. I think Joe really hit the nail on the head. Mental health support is huge. I've seen an increase of anxiety amongst all of my clients, no matter what country they're originally from. And, this is really expensive. If you are sitting at home and wondering, what can I do? Maybe you can help your neighbor or a close friend and offer to help pay for some of their immigration petitions. Like I said, these can range, these are thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that folks will have to put forth without a guarantee that it would be approved. And so it's very scary. It's a huge financial commitment and it could be very impactful for a neighbor.
Yes, and briefly,
Sure.
Tracy.
And I'd just love to do a shout out to a couple of the key organizations that do this work. Some of them provide low cost or no cost support for both legal and other services. AALV, take a look. I'm sure all folks are looking for, happy to get financial donations. USCRI in Colchester for the Chittenden area. Vermont Afghan Alliance is another organization. CVOEO does provide some direct support. And then the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project also has a larger fund for legal services, and they're looking for donations too. So some of the big organizations there as well.
I agree with all of that.
Tracy Dolan is the director of Vermont State Refugee Office. Tracy, thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
And Kristen Connors is an immigration attorney based in Burlington. Kristen, thank you.
Thank you.
And Joe Wiah with the Ethiopian Community Development Council, ECDC, based in the southern part of Vermont. Joe, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Michaela.
Well, we do have to take one more short break here, but when we come back, we're going to hear what it was like to be inside a mobile Mexican consulate in Montpelier. That's in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. The Trump administration has pledged to deport millions of undocumented people living in the United States. In Vermont, there have been multiple high-profile detentions of migrant farm workers in the past few months, including 9 farm workers detained in Enosburg. But there are still many undocumented migrants choosing to remain in Vermont to work. Vermont is estimated overall to have between 750 and 850 year-round migrant farm workers of different legal statuses, along with 150 of their partners and children. In late June, the Mexican consulate arrived in Montpelier. They were there to help Mexican nationals process passports, birth certificates, and other paperwork. Vermont Edition producer Daniela Fierro spoke to Mexican nationals and volunteers at the mobile consulate. She brings us this story.
Alejandro Pino has been living in Vermont for the last 19 years.
Mi nombre es Daniela, somos parte de la estación de radio pública Vermont Public.
Pino is from Mexico, but didn't arrive at the Mexican mobile consulate to get paperwork done. He was there to drive his coworkers who needed passport renewals.
¿Cómo son las conversaciones que tienes con tus compañeros cuando
I asked about the conversations he has with his coworkers.
Solo se platica.
We talk about immigration. Coworkers who have vehicles sometimes see where officials are. I live near the Derby line. I still have to go out sometimes. But now the guys are too scared, so they give me a list to go grab things for them. Everyone is scared.
Todos tienen miedo.
Before arriving in the Green Mountain State, Pino tried to cross the southern border 5 times. Each time, he was detained. He says he was grabbed by the Colorado River twice.
Pues la pasada ahí es más corta.
Crossing there is shorter. They detain you for 1 or 2 days. They put handcuffs on you. They look up if this is the first or second time. If you reach a certain limit, they put you in jail for 2 or 3 months.
Y si llega una la roja, ya te meten 2 meses o 3 meses ahí a la cárcel.
Pino says the other 3 times were when he was crossing the Sonoran Desert. He remembers being dehydrated and running into other people with extreme thirst. He said the 5th time he crossed the desert, he paid a coyote. That's a person who smuggles undocumented immigrants into the United States.
Fuimos dejados por el coyote, ya nosotros empezamos a caminar.
The smuggler abandoned the group, and we just kept walking. We were assaulted by cholos. They left us without anything. We had to return to the town. It's very risky.
Es muy riesgoso.
But his 6th try was a success. He worked near Yuma, Arizona, and then Syracuse, New York. He came up north after he heard there were better job opportunities here.
Me dijeron que acá había más oportunidades. Me vine a Nueva York.
He connected with a local advocate for farm workers named Mama Nancy. She helped him get a job in Vermont. In Mexico, he said he'd probably be working as a chauffeur, which pays significantly less than working on an American farm. Pino has been thinking a lot about the recent deportations and the Trump administration's immigration crackdown.
All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came.
As of June 29th, The Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse cites that over 620,000 immigrants have been detained in the U.S. this year.
En estos tiempos que estamos viviendo, ¿cómo te sientes ahorita?
I ask him about how he feels with what's happening across America.
La situación está muy fea.
It's an ugly situation, with the style of people I'm around, even with our coworkers, with this government. But the only thing we can do is push forward. We have to push forward.
Pero hay que seguir adelante.
¿Te sientes parte de la comunidad?
I asked him if he feels part of the community.
No.
No, not where I live. They're racist.
Hay muchas personas que son racistas.
Inside Christ Episcopal Church, volunteers greet people in Spanish and check them in. Felipe Cuellar works for the Mexican consulate in Boston. The consulate comes twice a year to Vermont to help process any paperwork from birth certificates, passports, and even apply for dual citizenship. He declined to comment on the recent ICE raids in Vermont, but says he knows the important role Mexican workers play on local dairy farms.
Y como le decía, solemos venir 2 veces al año a Vermont.
We usually come to Vermont twice a year. We love the community here, and we know they're hardworking. We know about the role they play on dairy farms.
De los lácteos o lecheras, ¿verdad?
On the first floor, consulate workers sit with people and process their paperwork. The second floor has a lot more going on. There's parents playing with their toddlers as they wait to be called next. Music is playing and the conversations are flowing. UVM's Bridges to Health sets up shop. The program aims to connect farm workers with health-related services. The advocacy organization Migrant Justice is also there. This is one of their organizers, Abel Luna.
Our communities are always under attack. Our goal here today at the Mexican consulate is to educate our community about the rights that we have, because we have rights. Doesn't matter if where you're from, people have human rights.
Central Vermont Refugee Action Network, also known as CV-RAN, is one of the organizers of the event. Peter Toms is a volunteer. He says it takes months to make sure an event like this all flows smoothly, especially in the current political climate.
So we think about ICE as being a relevant factor in how people decide what to do these days. And we don't have any real information that ICE is around, but we're being careful.
Tom says the mobile consulate used to be stationed at Goddard College in Plainfield. In 2018, they moved to Bethany Church in Montpelier. And after the July floods damaged that location, they moved to the Christ Episcopal Church.
And it wasn't an intentional thing to come to a sanctuary, so to speak. That was not the real idea. But a church is a welcoming place. They have a sanctuary church policy here. 6 pages long, very detailed. This is private space that we're in right now. The sanctuary downstairs is public. The dining room is public. But that's where the consulate staff is. So if ICE comes, we have to say, do you have a warrant for somebody personal to arrest? Otherwise, they're not welcome.
Bino brought his son with him to Montpelier. He's 9. He was born in the United States, and his son speaks a little bit of Spanish, but doesn't understand the language. I asked if he's talked to his son about the situation they're in. He says no. He doesn't want his son to panic.
Pero creo que él ya entiende porque como va a la escuela.
I think he understands because he goes to school. I had a conversation with his principal, seeing as there was talk about ICE going into schools. So I think he knows. I think he understands.
Y pues él ya sabe, ya entiende ya un poco.
Pero si algo te pasa a ti, ¿tienes planes para
if something were to happen to you, do you have a plan on who will take care of him?
Sí, tengo planes.
Yes, I have plans. I have a person who can look after him. If something ever happens, there's someone. With this system, you have to start thinking about what could happen.
According to the Central Vermont Refugee Action Network, about 140 people were served by the consulate that day. For Vermont Public, I'm Daniela Fierro.
And thanks to Danielle again for that piece. Tomorrow on Vermont Edition, we are going to be discussing healthcare in our region. You'll hear from the CEO of the University of Vermont Health Network, Sunny Eapen. It's the state's largest health network, and it's in the midst of creating a budget for next year. Healthcare, as many of you likely know, is increasingly unaffordable in our region, and we'll talk with Sunny Eapen about why that is. If you have questions for him, please email us ahead of tomorrow's show at vermontedition@vermontpublic.org. It's a big conversation, and I'd love it if your thoughts, opinions, and questions were a part of it. Today's show was directed by Aaliyah Papes. John Ahrens is our managing producer. Andrea Lorian and Daniela Fierro are our producers. Our intern is Callie Knuxerl, and our call screener today was Kelly Delorier. Our theme music is by Myra Flynn. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch up again soon.
These days, there's so much news, it can be hard to keep up with what it all means for you, your family, and your community. The Consider This podcast from NPR features our award-winning journalism. 6 days a week, we bring you a deep dive on a news story and provide the context and analysis that helps you make sense of the news. We get behind the headlines. We get to the truth. Listen to the Consider This podcast from NPR.